Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on The Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to The Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
Alive on the moon, Mounjaro, it's on the pen alive, with your host David Knapp.
Thank you, Claptrack, and happy Thursday night. Welcome to On the Pen Live. I'm your host, Dave Knapp. I'm the man on the Mounjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. That's why you're here. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Mounjaro, Zepbound, that pen. That's what we talk about here on the pen. How you doing? Welcome. It's good to be here with you all. It's good to be here on a Thursday night. I really, really appreciate everyone being here tonight. We've got a great show, lots of information to cover for you tonight, and I am looking forward to sharing with you all. So make sure that if you have questions tonight, you put them in the chat, put an N in the chat next to your name. Let me know that you're new here. And then if you have a question, put a Q in front of your name so I can hopefully grab it. Sue the Dude will try to keep his eyes out for that as well. And I am eager to get started with y'all tonight. And we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Housekeeping. You want Mintful pillow? So housekeeping, what do we got new? Well, something that's new tonight is the Sue the Dude sticker. So if you haven't already caught the others in the series, you got to check them out. Collect all three, right? So these are the three stickers. You can check these out if you would like them. You can send if you're a member of the channel, you can just send an email to mounjaroman@gmail.com. Otherwise, just throw a super chat, something to help cover the cost of the stickers. Whatever you can give is fine, and the postage. And yeah, I'll try to get them sent to you. Send an email to mounjaroman@gmail.com. Hope you all are doing great tonight. So that's one of the housekeeping things tonight. Another thing that I'll let you know is that we've got a new podcast, and that podcast drops every Tuesday. Usually for the members of the channel on YouTube, it's going to pop up on, let's see here. Is that showing up for you guys? Oh, that's the background. Every Monday night, it's going to show up for the members of the channel. They're going to get the video. But if you're a podcaster, you can get it where all the podcasts stream, StreamYard, or excuse me, not StreamYard, rather Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the Weekly Dose podcast. It's 15-minute roundup of the news and incretin mimetics for the week. And we would just love if you would go over there, give it a 5-star rating and review. It's linked in the description of this video. So if you could go out, check it out. It's growing every week, and we're excited to keep bringing you the news. Let me know in the comments if you're liking the podcast. Rudy's loving the podcast. Appreciate it, buddy. We really, really appreciate everybody who goes over there, checks it out, and especially leaves a 5-star rating and review. That makes it extra special to me. So thank you for those who are doing that. Let me get this banner off the screen here. So let's keep rolling. We're going to talk about what's fresh this week, and we're going to get a little heavy tonight with the what's fresh. So buckle up. So I shared with you all earlier this week that my dad back in 2012 had a massive heart attack and unfortunately passed away from that heart attack after 8 days in a coma. It was the most terrible week probably of my life. Very, very difficult, as one can imagine, and I won't belabor how difficult that week was, because I'm sure you've all been there in one way or the other. But I do want to give you a story that I don't know that I've ever given to the channel, and I don't know that I've ever really talked about here. And so I want to just take a minute, if you'll allow me, because I had a realization over the last couple of days, and that is, he passed away 12 years ago, and I've found, as I've grown more in touch and in tune with my emotions, that I'm never quite right for this whole week. This whole week, from the 19th when he had his heart attack all the way to the 27th when he actually officially passed away. I'm never quite right in this week. I'm always a little off. And so what I have found is that it's helpful to kind of lean into some of the memories that I had during this week. I find myself sharing stories about my dad with people more often. And now that I have this channel over on TikTok and over on YouTube, I just want to share with you the story of my last conversation with my dad. So if you don't mind, we're going to go a little bit off topic for a couple minutes here. I promise we'll bring it back to the GLP-1 world, but just indulge me for a moment, if you will. As a son who still grieves the loss of his father, I'm sure if you've lost your father and you're here tonight, let me know in the chat if that's the case. But I'm sure you know, right? And if you don't know, you're fortunate. So I had just started a new job. It was back in 2011 that I had started a brand new job. My dad had helped me find this job after working 10 years in restaurants. Restaurants was literally taking years off my life. I was a manager at an Olive Garden restaurant. Over the course of 8 years at Olive Garden, I put on 100 pounds as a restaurant manager. Stress and pasta are a really bad combination, as it turns out. And then so you got stress, pasta, and you just drizzle Alfredo over all of that. And it equals about 100-pound weight gain over 7 years. So that was a huge contributor to my obesity, to tie it all into the channel, right? Deborah lost her father in 2013, so a year after mine. So thank you for sharing, Deborah. I'm sorry to hear that. I was driving every day into work. We lived out of town. I was driving every day, and every day I'd pass my dad's office. So every now and again, I'd pop in to his office, and I'd just say, Dad, he did video production for like 25 years in the area that we're in. And Patricia lost her dad in 82. Karen lost her dad in 05. Michael lost his 50 years ago, and it still visits in his dreams. Very, very, very touching. Michael, thank you for sharing. And Texas Charm lost hers October 27th of 09. So every day I would pass my dad's office, and every now and again I would just dip into his office, say hey, if I had time, if I wasn't running late. Rudy lost his dad in 2018, and I would say, Dad, you got to help me find a gig outside of the restaurants. I would really love to dip my toes into marketing. So, I have this conversation 10, 15 times, and I'm going to go with Matt wants to know if I still eat Olive Garden or if it makes me sick every time I go in there. Yeah, I think just being in an Olive Garden is like a trigger for me, for sure. I don't enjoy it. Deborah's dad passed away from kidney cancer in 07, and he was only 70. Yeah, my dad was 54 when he passed away. So I'm sorry to hear that. So finally one day, there was something on the line. My dad goes, I got something for you, boy. Yeah, that's what he always called me, boy. The boy's warped, mother. One of my dad's favorite expressions to my mom was always, the boy's warped, mother. And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. Because my humor tends to lie somewhere on the spectrum of probably Matt's in the chat on YouTube. I just can't be like Matt on YouTube, or I wouldn't have a YouTube. But so he said, I've got something for you, boy. It's a job in sales. And I said, I can probably do that. I can handle a sales job. He's like, well, it's in IT. It's like, oh, I've never done sales and I've never done IT, but I know I can't raise a family working at Olive Garden. So I sit down, I write out a resume, I send it to the guy, and the guy says, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on you. So I go to work for this IT company. Hey, AJ, how are you tonight? And so there's nothing wrong with it, Matt, unless you're a YouTube censor. So my dad connects me with this gig. I end up getting the job, and I start a new job after working in basically only restaurants my entire life. Now I'm working IT, and I have no idea what I'm doing, right? I'm working sales and working IT for a small company. And so, I lean into it, and I start to get involved in the marketing side of this business, which was just opening up a whole new world to me. It's like marketing, like telling stories. This is what I do. I could do this for a living. So I get to start getting involved in some marketing projects with this company, and really, really exciting, right? And so I want to tell my dad about this because, as I mentioned earlier, my dad was a video producer. He did a lot of commercials, worked with a lot of ad agencies in the area. And so I said, I called him up, right? I'm pumping gas at this gas station that was brand new. And I just felt this tug, like, call your dad. And I don't know to this day, like where that came from, other than, I talk a lot about my faith. I'm a man of faith. And I believe that the Holy Spirit that day was calling me to see my dad. So I called my dad up. I was like, hey, I got something I want to talk to you about. Do you have some time? Of course, just come on over, boy. So I go over to my dad's house. To make a long story short, I end up having a 2-hour-long conversation with my dad that day, just out of nowhere. So a little bit of context. Obama, I think, had just been reelected to a second term. And so my dad, being an old conservative guy, the sky was falling. The world was going to hell in a handbasket, and it was all going to end. And so, like, he inundated me with that, and like, just, how dads can get for the first, like 25, 30 minutes of the conversation. But the second half of the conversation really switched to, hey, Dad, I'm doing this marketing stuff, and I am really enjoying it, and I would like to maybe come do some of the marketing stuff that I'm doing over there with your video production company. I think we could really take it to the next level. And so we have this long conversation, and he's like, all right, boy. And as I leave, I'm sliding his door shut, and he goes, don't forget this conversation. I was like, yeah, I won't. 2 days later, I get a phone call. My dad was on his way to church with a buddy of his, and his buddy was a recovering alcoholic, had lost his family, had lost everything. And my dad was really spending a lot of time with the guy because that's just how my dad was, just had a heart for people, compassion for people. And this guy calls me. He's frazzled. He's panicked. He said, your dad's down. We're not sure he's going to make it. And I'm like, what? Like, all this at once is just like, you're kidding me. So all in one moment, I get a phone call. My dad's down, and he's probably not going to make it. And we live 45 minutes out of town. So we book it into town. To make a long story short, the rest of the story, he ends up passing away after 8 days in a coma. So the last words that my dad ever spoke to me that day were, don't forget this conversation, boy. And I never did. I never forgot those words. I never forgot that conversation. I will never forget that conversation. And so, I worked for about 6 more months at the place that I was before I just went to my boss, and I was like, hey, I can't give this job everything I need to right now. I just need to go do like a no-brainer job that I can just show up and exist for a while I work through just this process of grief. And the boss that I had at that time was very gracious and offered to give me a month to go find something, which I did. And I ended up moving on to a job as a manager at a Hy-Vee, which is a grocery store. But this whole time at this Hy-Vee, and I was there for about a year, this conversation bounced around in my head. Don't forget this conversation, boy. I was going to do all this marketing stuff with my dad, and And he was going to teach me what he's doing with video, because I never got to learn the trade that he did. In fact, even to this day, I am just learning to do some of the things that were like things that he would do, like lighting and sound. I've got sound curtains up. Like, this is all stuff he would have known to do, and I could have learned, but never did. Right. So I just felt a real calling at that time that I was just supposed to start my business. I was supposed to get a laptop. And so basically I bought a laptop, and we didn't have any kids at the time. I'd come home, I'd spend every waking second I had outside of work on my laptop on YouTube. And I would use YouTube to learn how to build websites, to do graphic design. I had a calling on my heart and on my life at that time. And I just felt like, we've never lived at a period in history where you can literally just learn anything you want to learn if you have access to the internet and to a browser. And so I literally learned everything I could in 1 year to the day from my dad's passing. This is so cool. 1 year to the day, and I didn't plan this. I was able to launch Nap Media. And so this is the little logo that I had designed at that time. You can kind of see it's a K and an M kind of merged together to make this little stick figure who I called Ronnie. That was my dad's name, Ron. So yeah, I just made a little guy and started Nap Media 1 year to the day that my dad passed away. And Nap Media ended up launching my professional career into a whole new realm. I began to learn a ton about marketing. I got in touch with some really great companies. In fact, the company that I work for today selling x-ray equipment was one of the first companies that I ever worked for through Nap Media. And it was really the foundation, honestly, of what I'm doing today. Learning all that and doing all that was kind of what gave me the confidence to start a YouTube channel. Knowing a bit about marketing and all that stuff. And so what's really cool is that, so 1 year to the day of my dad's death, I launched Nap Media. And then right smack dab in the middle of that week, the following year, so 2 years later, right in the middle of the week that he was in his coma, our first son Sawyer was born. So we're about to celebrate his 10-year birthday. So Sawyer turns 10 on the 26th. And it's just cool how, if we have eyes to see it, God is doing little things all the time to just remind us, like, I'm here, even in our pain, even in our suffering, God can give us signs that he's there. And so that's the story. That's what's fresh. I just wanted to let you know, like, we'll keep this tucked away in your back pocket for the future. I am just never quite right during this week. Emotionally, energy wise, it's like, I don't know, it probably relates to trauma and that whole week and all that. But it's also a sweet time. I mean, it's time to reflect on just what a gift it is to have a loving father. What a gift it was to have a dad who taught me to look a man in his eyes, to shake hands, to talk loud enough that people could hear you. All those things that some boys need a little extra coaching on, which I did as a young man. And he taught me those things. Tyler gave a $5 super chat. Thank you, Tyler, for doing that. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. So that is the story of my dad and his passing. And so I just wanted to share that with you all tonight, because it's just a part of me that I don't think I've quite ever shared on this channel too much. I shared a little bit in one video, and but outside of that, I haven't shared it much. So I wanted to share that with you tonight and appreciate you for indulging me. So with that said, we're going to get back to the topic of GLP-1 medications, and we're going to talk about something else that's fresh, actually, in the world of GLP-1s. So a special shout out to Clark Kent. Clark Kent has just been such a help in just sending me content, tons of information that comes out in the world of GLP-1s every week. And I want to introduce you all to a new weight loss pill. And I promise you, you have probably not heard of this weight loss pill. So this is, I believe this comes from Australia. So this pill is literally a pill that you swallow, but the pill is attached to a line that is attached to air. And what happens is this is a balloon that once you swallow the pill is filled with a saline solution. And this sits in your stomach, fills up in your stomach. And they say that, and basically, after a few months, this naturally dissolves and you just excrete it, right? It only takes about 15 minutes. It's about the size of a large grapefruit, and it holds 550 MLS. Is that milliliters? Seems like a lot. But basically, they do this all under X-ray control. They inflate it while it's in your stomach, and patients lose 10 to 15% of their weight over 4 months. So it's almost like a form of bariatric surgery, and it's done, just within a few minutes at the doctor's office. It seems like it's very safe. And then once it's done, it just, the saline solution kind of leaks out in your stomach and you just pass it. And it looks, so Stacy said it sounds like a breast implant, and it looks very much like a breast implant. So I will share the link to this article in the description of this video once the video posts. And it is just a fascinating, another, I don't know when or if this will be available in the United States, but apparently it's available in Australia currently. So if you're in Australia, mate, and you put another shrimp on the barbie, you can for sure look into this, because I know that it's extremely difficult to find Mounjaro there and really any of the other GLP-1 medications. I don't have a name for it. I'll link in the description of my YouTube. Make sure you go over there and follow the YouTube channel. But you can, let's see here. It's called a Allurion balloon. So Allurion, Allurion, Allurion. So you can Google that and find it right now if you're anxious. So that is what's fresh, right? Finally, some non-GLP-1 information. And we should, you should Bing that. Yeah, nobody's saying that. Bing it. So yeah, with that said, let's get into the nitty gritty. We're going to do hot channel. This is the hot channel tonight. This channel is the hot channel, and we're going to roll the bumper because it's my favorite bumper. Well, actually, we got to take out the trash first. Let's take out the trash first. I just got to remember what the trash was that we're taking out. Didn't get a chance to make show notes tonight. Let me think here. Oh, just as a side note, I meant to mention this earlier. There is a CNBC documentary about Ozempic airing on the 29th that is all about Ozempic and the GLP-1 craze. People have asked me, I've been asked probably like 3 or 4 times in the last 24 hours if I'm going to watch it. Of course I'm going to watch it, and we'll do a breakdown here on the YouTube channel. So another reason to make sure that you hit that like, hit that bell, hit that sub if you're over on YouTube. That will be a long form video, too long for TikTok. So make sure that you check that out over on YouTube. This is what it was. Okay. So some other articles came out today that gym memberships are hurting, and they're blaming it on GLP-1s. And this tickles me, because I would say that a solid 90% of the people that I know on GLP-1s are also members of gyms. And not only members of gyms, probably in the gym as much or more than just about anybody. So first of all, this is a straw man, they got to blame something. It couldn't be the economy. It couldn't be that it costs $400 to go to the grocery store for a small family every time you go. It couldn't be that, right? It couldn't be inflation, which is just through the roof and crippling people and way outpacing wage increases, right? It couldn't be any of that. It's GLP-1s, right? What a ridiculous, it's like 3% of people of the population or something like that in the United States are on GLP-1s, but somehow that accounts for a 10% deficit in gym memberships. I don't think so. I think, in fact, if anything, we are doing our part to contribute. I know I bought exercise equipment. I have a gym membership also. And so we it ain't us. So look somewhere else. So that's the trash for this week. Moving on. This is the hot channel. Let's talk about it.
Hot channel.
All right, hot channel. So this is a shout out to Shy Slate, and I don't know if Shy is watching tonight, but Shy is one of the awesome moderators in our Zepbound for Weight Loss group. So if you're not part of the Zepbound for Weight Loss group on Facebook, it's Zepbound for Weight Loss. You can tell because in the image at the top of the screen, you'll see my call outs for my social media. So check it out. Zepbound for Weight Loss just hit 10,000 members today. So just today we hit 10,000 members on that channel, which is just amazing. So if you want to be a part of that, go over there, check it out. Make sure that you share a little bit about this channel in there, because even though I own the channel, I can't promote it too much. So thank you for those who share the content there and everywhere. Appreciate it. But yeah, Shy is a moderator there. She's been a follower of this channel for a long, long time. And she sent me this video like a week or two ago. And I only recently got a chance to sit down and watch it because I drive for work. Because I drive for work, I get a lot of opportunities in the car to watch a ton of content. And so I have bounced around between different podcasts. I listen to a lot of comedians. Every now and again, I'll listen to like a sermon or something like that. But this week I focused on getting through this 5-hour National Institute of Health Symposium, which was just freaking awesome. I'll make sure I go back and link it in the description of this video if there's anybody who nerds out as much as I do. But there was one talk in particular that I want to zero in on, and it was just, I mean, it was awesome. Let me pull it up here. In the meantime, somebody over on TikTok asked, what's the name of the Facebook group again? It's Zepbound for Weight Loss. I don't know if I'm going to get this guy's name. Cloakster, help me out. So the coolest thing that I came across in this NIH was about an hour. It was probably about 35 minutes from the guy. I think his name was Choop. Is that right? Choop, TSH something. Help me out, Cloakster. What was his name? But anyways, this guy was basically the first person to come up with the idea of combining agonists, like incretin agonists. So he was the first one to go, yeah, so we have the GLP-1. If we take GLP-1 and we combine it with agonizing another incretin hormone, we might see exponentially greater benefits for people. So literally, when you talk about GLP-1s, that's your so let's start the first GLP-1 medication, which was Byetta, exenatide. Exenatide was essentially the peptide that they isolated from the Gila monster that they found was lowering blood sugar in diabetics. And so essentially what they did was they isolated this peptide and started giving it to diabetics. And that medicine was made by a company called Amylin, and Amylin made exenatide, which was Byetta. And then, so that was the first, and it was a daily GLP-1, which led to Novo Nordisk developing liraglutide, which is called Saxenda and Victoza, which led to them further developing that peptide into a once weekly injection called semaglutide in the form of Ozempic and Wegovy. And ultimately, before they did that, Lilly came out with Trulicity, another once weekly. They came out with Trulicity, I think, before semaglutide came out. And then you had this guy, and he's a German guy. That's the best I can give you right now. I'll link in the description of this video. Just a fascinating talk. He was like, if we combine other incretin hormones and we may see an increase in efficacy. We may see a lowering of side effects. So he was the first to come up with the idea of a polyagonist, a dual agonist, which ultimately led, and he worked for Eli Lilly for a little bit and then bounced back and forth between Germany. And he's won tons and tons of awards in obesity medicine. One of his colleagues was the one that discovered leptin. So you have leptin and ghrelin, two hormones. That's basically the yin and the yang, right? It's the hormone that tells you that you're hungry, and then the hormone that tells you that you're full. And so they did a lot of playing with like trying to block the receptors that made you feel full and try to increase the hormones that made you feel full, and tinkering around with those, which ultimately led to GLP-1 medications. So basically, yeah, the father of dual agonists, right? That's a great way to say it, Clokey. So let's get into, I've got a bunch of slides here, and I just want to kind of go through them with you because it was a long 5 hours and change. But I wanted to pull out the screenshots that I thought were the coolest. So the first one I want to show you is this one. And maybe his name will show up here, but that's him up in the corner. So the rainbow diet pills came up again. And so I mentioned those on another live stream that we did not too long ago, which I found very interesting. Essentially, they were combinations of thyroid medicines, amphetamines, barbiturates, like laxatives, like we're talking intense medications. And then there were diet doctors. So this was like the beginning, right? And so this is how it's evolved. And I thought that was really interesting to hear kind of how everything sort of evolved. You see here just another slide. It's kind of hard to read, but you see basically your rainbow pills all the way over here, your amphetamines, your let's see here. I can barely read this. Orlistat was another one. So all the way basically to semaglutide. And this is a little, so this is before Tirzepatide was actually approved. So just fascinating to see kind of the evolution of the medications. This one I thought was really helpful. That's just worth seeing here. Basically, these are the people who discovered GLP-1s, which was, or what GLP-1 is. So Svetlana Mounjaro and Joel Habener. So shout out to them. We love you, whoever you are and however you pronounce your names. We love you. So they had the patent on the discovery of insulinotropic hormone derivatives and the use thereof. So kudos to them. Let's see here. So one of the interesting things, I'll just show this slide, and it just shows basically how GIP receptor agonism helps to reduce the side effects that people feel on a GLP-1 medication. And let's see here. Let's see if I can add myself back in here. So the reason I'm showing you this slide, obviously most of us know that GIP agonism is actually known to decrease side effects compared to its predecessors, GLP-1. I want to talk to you a little bit because this is what this guy said in this interview that I found most fascinating. And some of you have seen this in the videos that I put out this week. So basically, you see that that GIP agonism in Tirzepatide is 5 times stronger than GLP-1. WQ wants to know, I'm streaming on YouTube primarily, so you're just along for the ride over here on TikTok. So basically, if you want to follow on TikTok, you can go, or on YouTube, you can click over to the link in my bio, and that'll take you right over there to the main broadcast. But essentially, the ratio of GIP agonism to GLP-1 agonism in Tirzepatide is 5-to-1. So it's very much a GIP agonist rather than a GLP-1 agonist. It's a dual agonist, right? But the GIP is 5 times stronger in Tirzepatide. And so it's interesting because you've heard a lot lately about the GLP-1 and GIP antagonists coming from Amgen that's delivered in a monoclonal antibody. And you see the side effects with the side effect profile of GIP antagonism is massive. So even though we talk about big pharma not necessarily being sure of what's better, GIP agonism or GIP antagonism, I think Lilly probably picked the right one here, because as they go up in dose of the GIP antagonism in the Amgen trials for Maritide, the side effect profile is through the roof. So we'll see how that comes out in phase 3, because they're going to have to do a lot of tinkering with that peptide and with the dosing schedule, because half of the people on the highest dose in the phase 2 trials quit. Now, they did say that those side effects leveled off after the first dose, but it's a once a month dose. So you're stuck with it the whole month. It's very interesting. So we'll follow that. But GIP agonism really seems to be the way to go. You see Eli Lilly really has gone gung-ho with the GIP agonism. And I just thought that was interesting. So if you ever wanted to know Tirzepatide, Mounjaro, Zepbound, which one is, or how it's different, obviously we talk about, well, it's a dual agonist and the rest aren't. Yeah, but how much? Well, 5-to-1 is the ratio. And that coming from the first man ever to work on polyagonism in these peptides. Brent said, not sure you'll get to it in this content, but also worth noting that everyone has their own set of receptors for GLP-1, both in concentration and sensitivity, and it affects the overall experience. 100%. And so one of the other things that we talked about, Brent, and they're doing clinical trials on this as well. I'm not sure if you caught the content, but if you're a slow responder to a GLP-1 or a GIP or the GIP in Tirzepatide, they're studying basically what they found is you have a receptor, right? Everybody has a receptor on their cells for GLP-1 or GIP or any of the incretin hormones. And what they found out, you put the agonist in there. So let's call this the GLP-1 agonist. It comes in and it binds with the receptor perfectly, right? Then you get all of the wonderful mechanisms of actions that GLP-1 gets, right? But what they found is that some people's receptors are more like this. So when the agonist comes along, it's like a lock and key. It doesn't fit quite right. And so people don't respond as well who don't have the right receptors or, abnormal receptors. So they actually have some clinical trials going on to test just that. Like, how do we get these people with abnormal receptors to respond to these medications? So those trials are going on, and that's a great point, Brent. Cloakster brings up the point that Amgen's got some trade-offs to make in phase 3 for Maritide, side effects versus potency. Yeah, they're going to have to do a lot. Phase 3 is going to be messy. I mean, that's I don't know that I do a video on the Amgen call. I cannot remember if I did or not, but I listened to the Amgen conference call and listened to them talk about Maritide, and it's kind of sloppy. So we'll see what's to come of that. So that was super interesting. So the 5-to-1 ratio was probably one of the biggest things that I found interesting in this specific speech that this guy gave at the symposium. But this is a really interesting bar, just kind of comparing similar times in the trials for Retatrutide and for Tirzepatide. And you see Retatrutide, the triple agonist, and we don't know the ratios with that one, but it is much, much more potent at the same time in the clinical trial period as Tirzepatide was. So Retatrutide obviously being the triple agonist and the future sort of obesity medicine in the short term. Here, you get to just see kind of, and again, this is a little outdated because this was back in the fall, but you can see kind of where some of the clinical trials sit with some of the coagonists, the next generation of these medications. And you can see that you've got multiple pharmaceutical companies in the game. We've talked about many of these. You see Boehringer Ingelheim is on there, AstraZeneca. Who else? Amgen, obviously, Lilly and Innovent. That's going to be your Mazdutide, which is a really interesting one to watch too. Funny enough, so Mazdutide is going to be interesting because Innovent holds the patent, or not the patent, but the rights to sell Maritide in China. And China is actually the country with the greatest number of obese people, just by strictly numbers, which is very interesting. Moving through the slides, so you see here that you've got another representation of the past and where obesity medicine has come from, all the way from phentermine, which came along in the 50s, all the way up to semaglutide in the early 2020s. And then you kind of see the potential timeline for the rest of them. They're calling them nutrient stimulated hormone because theoretically in your body, not theoretically, but in reality, GLP-1, GIP, these are hormones. Incretin hormones are secreted in response to nutrient intake. It's just that they found a way in these peptides to give them super long half-lives so that they last a long time. So this is a good time to just remind you that there's so many supplements coming out. There's so many, a lot of pyramid scheme people trying to get on the train of getting you on something because it's quote unquote just like nature's Ozempic, or it's Ozempic, but in a pill form, and it's whatever it may be, right? They say it makes you produce natural GLP-1. Well, that may be true, but nutrients in general, the intake of nutrients, glucose, it stimulates the response to GLP-1. But the half-life of GLP-1 in your body of naturally occurring GLP-1 is about 5 minutes. So these peptides, what makes them amazing is that they last for a week in your body. So just be forewarned that there's an ounce of truth maybe to what they say, but it's quite disingenuous. This here is really interesting. So this is a graph that shows you Tirzepatide, the distribution of percentage of weight change for the participants in the clinical trials. And you can just kind of follow that graph along and see versus placebo how people did. And you just see that almost 98% of patients that got on Tirzepatide lost weight, which is just amazing. So that was interesting. Here's another graph where you can kind of see that play out with Retatrutide. And the interesting thing here is that 100% of people who took Retatrutide lost weight. 100%. So that's not something you hear in medicine often, that 100% of anything. 100% of people who took Retatrutide lost weight. So that will be a fun one to watch. Cloakster brings up a great point. CagriSema comes out before Retatrutide, and that is true. And CagriSema, I'm really excited for. So here's a little personal note. So I have a meeting with my doctor, and some of you are going to ask, like, are you doing the stack that Dr. Allo talked about last week? And I'm talking to my doctor about this week. I've got a new doctor for obesity medicine. And so one of the things that's very interesting that I'm going to talk to him about is, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of pramlintide, but basically it is an amylin agonist. So is CagriSema. And amylin is the hormone that's responsible for satiety. And so CagriSema is a combination of cagrilintide, which is an amylin agonist, and semaglutide. And the results for CagriSema are really on par with Retatrutide from strictly a weight loss standpoint. So it's very interesting to see CagriSema. So I'm going to see about potentially stacking pramlintide, if insurance will cover it, with my Tirzepatide once I can get that filled, which is going to be another couple weeks before the insurance company will cover it. Hey, if you're over on TikTok and you're watching, make sure you follow the live creator, like this, and share it with somebody who it'll help. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button, hit that bell, hit that sub. We're almost to 100 watchers on YouTube, so it would be great to get to 100 and break 100. So CagriSema is a really interesting one too. Let's see if there's any of these other ones that are worth sharing here that I can remember. Oh yeah, this one was interesting. If you're a female, you are likely to lose more weight on Retatrutide, and it's like by a lot. So the average top tier of weight loss for Retatrutide in male participants was around 22% after 48 weeks. Yeah, 48 weeks. If you are a female, that number goes all the way up to 28.5%. So literally like 7% higher weight loss if you're a female on Retatrutide. So that's going to be an exciting one to watch. I'm not sure, Cloakster, maybe I don't know if these results have been released at all or not, but how CagriSema weight loss stacks up between male versus female participants. And the interesting thing about this trial is it was 50% males and 50% females. And usually these trials are weighted more heavily on the female side and have more female participants for whatever reason. See, this was getting into another doctor talking about stacking medications, more history of pharmacotherapies for weight loss. And yeah, so this was an interesting one. So if you watched the interview with Dr. Allo last week, Dr. Allo spent a lot of time talking about stacking medication. So if you're not responding to the GLP-1, these are some that they really focus on stacking in his weight loss clinic. And that's where he got into this graph here, where it showed the 5-year maintenance using these medication stacks. Again, this is going to be mostly semaglutide and liraglutide because those are what have been around to record the data from. But you can see that the people with the stack of medications did a lot better with the weight loss over time. And that was using these types of medications to stack. So they stack a GLP-1 with an SGLT2 like Jardiance. The pramlintide, you can see that that's on there. That's the amylin agonist. That's, there's an amylin agonist in CagriSema. So that'll be interesting to watch. And so a really, really interesting Cloakster. A really, really interesting symposium if you are down to clown and to watch 5 hours and 45 minutes. These are all doctors who have been critical in the development of obesity medicine, and just a fascinating watch. If you've got some extra time, I would be interested to hear what you find interesting if you do watch that. So come back and comment on this video and let me know what you see and hear. And I would be interested to hear from you all what your thoughts are. So that's what I got for this week. I mean, this was just thank you to Shai Slayton for sharing this with me. This was fascinating information to cover. I just eat it up. If you ever have anything that you come across that you're like, Dave needs to see that, definitely check it out. Sorrento, you said I'm talking too fast. So my suggestion to you is what you're going to want to do is click on the link in my bio. It'll take you to my YouTube and you'll get to watch this over there on repeat. It gets recorded and you can watch it on demand on YouTube after the broadcast ends. So if I'm talking too fast, you're going to see the slides that I'm talking about over there. And you can also slow the video down if that's helpful. So yeah, I want to take a few minutes. I don't get a chance to do this all the time, but I want to take a chance to open up the conversation with you all if you have any questions tonight. So I want to hear from you. Cloakster wants to know how many Mounjaro shots so far. I don't have any, so I haven't gotten it yet. It's been back and forth with the insurance company because I had just filled Ozempic, and they don't want to cover it until after the first week in March. So it'll be a couple weeks till I have it, and I do need to take my Ozempic shot tonight. So, Sorrento wants to know how to spell Retatrutide. It's Ret, R-E-T, Ret, R-E-T-A. Trutide, T-R-U-T-I-D-E, Retatrutide. Katie said it correctly, Retatrutide. Yep. Retatrutide is how they pronounce it. What's in the skinny shot? So the skinny shot is something that you'll see marketed a lot online, and it could be any number of things online. So don't quote me on this, but typically it's a B12 MIC injection. So it's B12 and then MIC, whatever MIC stands for. I can't remember it off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I've taken it, didn't do anything for me. But that was my own experience. B12 is going to be really good for energy if you are deficient in B12, but these are things you should have your doctor check your levels for. You may not be deficient in it. Jess in process, how are you tonight? I hope you're doing well. Are they still thinking 2025 for FDA approval for Reta? So we're thinking actually probably late 2026. Because the clinical trials are a little bit longer for Retatrutide. I believe they're 80 weeks. So we're not going to get readouts on those until early or mid 2026. So that's a bummer. Fish Trips has lost 289 pounds as of today. That's awesome. Angie's on MJ, 5 milligrams. Her doctor will not increase to 7.5 due to your blood sugar going low. Well, so these medicines should not cause... they should not theoretically cause hypoglycemia because they only make insulin in response. It only encourages your body to make insulin in response to glucose going high. Are you using any other medications that might make your sugars run low as well, like metformin? If you're stacking with metformin, that's sort of another thing. Vanessa's hit a stall. Sorry to hear that. Oh, Fish Trips is triplet dad. Welcome, buddy. Hey, Alice, how are you tonight? Chat, any more news about peptide by Viking? No, I just think that Viking Tide is going to get gobbled up by either Pfizer or Eli Lilly. So we'll see. So Creamy says some plastic surgeons are calling the quote-unquote skinny shot compounded versions of Tirzepatide and semaglutide. Definitely, that's why I said be careful, because they're not all going to be the same thing. People call it a lot of things. So Patricia's on metformin as well. So Angie, if you're not on metformin, I would talk to your doctor again, because I don't believe that is hypoglycemia even one of the warnings on the box. I don't even think that it is, because it's only supposed to make insulin on demand. Now, here's the thing, Angie, is that if your sugars are going low, do you wear a CGM or are you pricking your finger? My CGM can be way off. So if your CGM is reading like in the 60s or the 50s, poke your finger. Because oftentimes I find there's like, when I poke my finger, is about 20 ticks higher. So especially I use a Freestyle Libre 3 and it's crap. It goes off in the middle of the night. I've checked my blood sugar with the manual one, and it's always normal. The CGMs are a little sketchy in my opinion. At least Freestyle Libre 3 is. Mounjaro cost in the UK is less than $250 per month. No coupon needed. Yes, I read an article today, thanks to Clark Kent, that most people who are on semaglutide overseas are paying out of pocket. I think that's in the UK. Are paying out of pocket, but they pay much less. Yeah, they've warned not to take Mounjaro with other type 2 diabetes medications, because then you get into issues with low blood sugars. Yeah, definitely, Angie, check your blood sugars with the manual one to true it up. Mounjaro is not semaglutide. No, it's Tirzepatide. It's a dual agonist. Let's see here. Do you think we'll hear anything on prices of liraglutide when it comes out generic? So, I mean, the generics aren't usually, from what I hear, that much cheaper when they first come out. But I'm hearing we should have them in June. Jess in process wants to know. She's having the same results on compounded sema that I had with MJ. That's awesome. Haven't lost any, but haven't gained any. It's nice to be holding. What dose are you on, Jess? It's good to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. Block. Yeah, I think I already answered that. Cloakster. What were you saying, buddy? When the generic comes out, both it and the name brand will be in shortage. Yeah, for sure. What am I drinking? My guilty pleasure. Yeah, you're right. They will ramp down production. You'll see as semaglutide goes on. Brent's making an excellent point. As liraglutide goes, it is off patent currently, but when the generic comes out, they're not going to prioritize that in manufacturing. They're going to try to prioritize semaglutide. So, of course, there's way more money to be made with semaglutide. There's way more demand for semaglutide. It's just a better molecule. Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi girl. Yeah, I love Diet Mountain Dew. It's my bae. So, any other questions tonight? Any other questions tonight before we pop off? Thank you for sticking with me tonight. Hope you enjoyed it, even though we didn't have a guest on tonight. I hope that it was an informative chat for you tonight. Thank you to Tyler, who gave a $5 super chat tonight. Thank you for Sue the Dude, who gifted 5 memberships. I didn't even see that, buddy. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. AJ renewed her subscription over a couple days ago on TikTok, so thank you for that. Did the savings card fiasco get? Oh, that was another thing I was going to talk about. The savings card fiasco that's going on in. So basically, let's back this up. So a lot of people had issues running their savings card for Mounjaro and Zepbound, but it actually wasn't isolated to Eli Lilly. It was across the board. There's a company called Change Healthcare, and Change Healthcare had a hack. And so they shut their whole systems down, so people could not actually run their savings cards today or yesterday. So it sounds like by tomorrow, they're hoping to have that back online, but there's going to be likely a massive amount of people trying to fill their scripts. So it's probably going to be a little slow going for a couple days. So it'll take a couple days to get ironed out. Triplet Dad is now here as Triplet Dad. So thank you for not confusing us. Well, thank you for being here tonight. Any news on testing higher doses of semaglutide? Oh, yeah. So, Shelly, I've done videos on both of these. They tested all the way up to 16 milligrams of the injectable semaglutide. We're going to get 50 milligrams of Rybelsus later this year. And they're testing high-dose Tirzepatide as well currently. So absolutely, those are going on. So thank you for being here, Shelly. If you're new here on YouTube, make sure you hit that like, hit that bell, hit that sub. Would love to have you around for the next time we go live and every video that I update. So thank you for being here. If you've been here on TikTok tonight, you're new, hit that follow button. Make sure you stay in touch with all my content. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what I do here at Man on the Mounjaro. I couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't do it without you. And until next week, we will see you on the pan.